It seems that the Watchtower's publication, Pay Attention to Daniel's Prophecy, has prophesied the Watchtower's own demise without them even realizing it. I'm going to read a couple of things and see what you think. Look at this picture here. This is when the Medes and the Persians under Cyrus the king took over Babylon. They're going over the river Euphrates here and into this open door the Babylonians just left open while they were reveling, having a big feast, a big sumptuous feast. Sounds like something you've heard before. You see the two watchtowers here? Do you see them? Two watchtowers by the river. And look what page number this is here. Page 111. Anyway, some of you know about the whole 11 thing. But let's start off on page 100. A feast gets out of control. Think about the assemblies coming up in October. That's what I think this could be applied to. They always talk about, we're having a big spiritual feast that Jehovah has provided. And they sit around just like Babylon, eating a lot of things that are unclean according to Jehovah's law, praising men and teaching false doctrines, things that have been proven to be wrong, things that are even blasphemous to the God that they claim to worship. The 5th chapter of Daniel opens with a banquet. As regards Belshazzar the king, he made a big feast for 1,000 of his grandees, and in front of the 1,000 he was drinking wine. And boy, do the witnesses drink wine at their assemblies. They get drunk with those foolish words that make them think that they're great, that their watchtower and their religion is impenetrable, that they're God's people. Nobody could bring them down and make them feel better than everybody else. As you can imagine, it must have taken a vast hall to seat all these men. A vast hall, huh? Kingdom Hall? Assembly Hall? Yes, the Assembly Hall. Along with the king's secondary wives and concubines. One scholar notes the Babylonian banquets were magnificent, though they usually ended in drunkenness. Wine imported from abroad and luxuries of every kind loaded the table. Perfumes filled the hall. Vocalists and instrumental performers entertained the assembled guests. Presiding, where all could see him, Belshazzar drank his wine and drank and drank. Isn't that what the assemblies are? They sit around and they feel so good. I used to feel so good at the assembly myself. I felt on top of the world. Some of us hated them, were bored, but it made you feel wonderful. You could see what you thought were Jehovah's people, what you thought were God's people, and you felt this great feeling of oneness. And they tickled your ears with all this stuff about the paradise and about how you had the truth, and that nobody could stop what Jehovah's Witnesses were doing. But notice this. It seems strange that the Babylonians were in such a festive mood on this night. October 5 and 6, 539 BCE. October. That's when they have all their assemblies. Many at assembly halls. And that's when we're going to go. That's when we're going to go. That's when Babylon just may fall. Their nation was at war and things were not going well for them. Nabonidus had recently suffered defeat at the hands of the invading Medo-Persian forces and had taken refuge in Borsippa to the southwest of Babylon. And now the armies of Cyrus were encamped right outside Babylon. Don't they know that we're camped outside? The vast apostate army is camped outside of their walls. We made that clear on September 11th. And from henceforth. But guess what? Look what they're doing. Yet it does not seem that Belshazzar and his grandees were worried. After all, their city was the impregnable Babylon. Who does that sound like? What kind of haughtiness does that sound like you've heard before? The Watchtower. This is Jehovah's organization. Her colossal walls loomed over deep moats filled by the great Euphrates River as it flowed through the city. No enemy had taken Babylon by storm in over 1,000 years, so why worry? Perhaps Belshazzar reasoned that the noise of their revelry would display their confidence to the enemies outside and would dishearten them. They did that even when I went, just laughed at us. Laughed at me. Oh, what are you going to do? You little old you. But they did ask, are you part of a group? But yeah, they want to act like they're not worried about the apostates. Oh, they've done this 100 times. Nothing's going to happen to Jehovah's organization. This is God's organization. They can't do anything to us. Don't you think that they're also in such a drunken stupor? They think the same thing as the Babylonians think. They think nobody can touch them. They're drunk. They're totally drunk, and they're going to be even drunker at the assemblies in October. Totally confident, leaving their doors wide open. I'm going to go to that picture for a minute. There's a lot. Just if you still have this Daniel book, go look and you'll laugh at a lot of the things you read, how much they apply to the witnesses. Look here at this picture. That door is left wide open, as the paragraph says. They were so confident that they couldn't fall, that even though there's armies encamped around them, they left the doors wide open, thinking they couldn't get through the river. But they dried that river up so they could just walk right through it. And they went right in there and took over Babylon. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Check this paragraph out. The fall of Babylon. Even while Belshazzar and his courtiers were drinking to their gods and ridiculing Jehovah, a great drama was unfolding in the darkness outside the palace. And guess what? The witnesses also drink to their gods. Their gods are the men of the Watchtower, and they do ridicule Jehovah without even knowing it. If you read earlier, it says that Belshazzar actually took the cups from Jehovah's temple that they had looted and were drinking out of them and praising their gods. Well, that's what the Watchtower does. They drink out of Jehovah's utensils, and then they praise the Watchtower using Jehovah's own word. And that's what they did back in that day. So at the assembly, they'll be praising Jehovah's organization. Praising, what they're really doing is praising the men, the Watchtower, the false gods. And they're really ignoring Jehovah. They'll be doing the same thing. So let's see what happens. So they're ignoring, they're sitting here praising their false gods. A great drama was unfolding in the darkness outside the palace. See, they're not going to know because most of them ain't going to watch these videos or be on apostate sites. Prophecy that had been spoken through Isaiah nearly 2 centuries earlier was undergoing fulfillment. Concerning Babylon, Jehovah had foretold, "All sighing due to her, I have cause to cease." Yes, all of that wicked city's oppression of God's chosen people was to come to an end. All our crying that we've done because of leaving the Watchtower, the oppression given us inside and outside of the Watchtower, is about to cease. Even if you don't believe in the Bible anymore, or look at it totally different, still that seems relevant, doesn't it? The same prophecy said, "Go up, O Elam, lay siege, O Media." Elam, anyway, there's some details. That's not important. Here's what's important. In fact, the very name of the leader of these forces had been foretold, as had the main points of his battle strategy. Some 200 years in advance, Isaiah had prophesied that Jehovah would anoint one named Cyrus to come against Babylon. In the course of his onslaught, all obstacles would be smoothed out before him. Babylon's waters would dry up, and her mighty doors would be left open. When you go to the assembly, guess what? They're going to let you come right in. I mean, you can't go in there with signs, obviously. But if you're discreet, they'll let you on in. They want you to come to the assembly. If you dress up looking somewhat like you're going to church or going to the Kingdom Hall. They're going to let you right in. The doors are going to be left open for you. Wait and see. And so it was. The armies of Cyrus diverted the Euphrates River, lowering the water level so that they could move through the riverbed. Doors in Babylon's wall had been left open by careless guards, careless elders. As secular historians agree, the city was invaded while its inhabitants reveled. Babylon was taken with hardly any opposition. There was, though, at least one notable death. Daniel reported, in that very night Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed, and Darius the Mede himself received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So here's the vast apostate army, you guys, going right into the watchtowers. You see the two towers there? The doors are going to be left open at the assembly. There's the assembly hall, you guys. You ready for October? What do you think about this? Who is this army here? The vast apostate army. The big media, the big, all the news that's about to be in the media about what's going on with the watchtower, that we have to make sure happens. It's up to us to do this. And then the government finally saying, you know what? Jehovah's Witnesses are discriminating against former members. They're violating freedom of speech. They're violating freedom of religion. That's going to become a law, you guys. That's how Babylon's going to fall. Because the error is going to be exposed. Because it's not even legal what they're doing. So the great army, the great kings, really probably the governments who lock down on them. But it could be the vast apostate army also. I think it makes more sense thinking, it's really all of it, all the above. But I think the whole month of October, we should go back to the assemblies and kingdom halls. And, whatever it may be. Talk about the mentally diseased thing, how they call us mentally diseased. Talk about the watchtower joining the UN. Talk about anything that you think should be addressed. The main point is that we should go, and a lot of us should go, the whole army. It's been prophesied right in their book, in the Bible, in Daniel, and in the watchtower's own words. They prophesied about their own fall.